Up YouTube, welcome to What the Papers Say with Deek Jackson. Today's paper is the Independent Scottish edition, which means the front page is covered in pish about Nicola Sturgeon, because apparently that's what people in Scotland want. People in Scotland want pish about Nicola Sturgeon. How parochial, how condescending, how wrong they are. I couldn't give a fuck about Nicola Sturgeon. The Scottish Government and the Scottish Parliament are an expensive, toothless talking shop that has done nothing of any value for the people of Scotland except present us with a bill for wankers to talk pish. Cheers. And, by the way, during the lockdown, institute their own special brand of fascist little Hitler wank. Arnold, good morning. I hope you recovered from your night in the park and that you're having a great day. I blame. Good morning to you. So, Sturgeon eases more lockdown measures. That's what the headline says, Mr. Super Genius. It says Nicola Sturgeon eases lockdown measures. Now, in a parallel universe, I think what the headline should say is Sturgeon announces lockdown measures. Because the lockdown measures are in force, and all she is doing is slightly tweaking them. So this headline is just a reminder that Nicola Sturgeon presides over a fascist, tyrannical bunch of little Hitlers who've taken control of my life and the lives of people in Scotland and subjected us to draconian and totalitarian rule. Three Stig, good morning to you. And what are these lockdown measures? Swimming pools and gyms can reopen. Oh, I'm glad about that. I hope all you people who like swimming and gymming can finally go and swim and gym. Football stadiums allowed to have limited number of spectators. But Scotland will remain in Phase 3 of the lockdown roadmap. Ooh, sounds exciting, doesn't it? Phase 3 of the lockdown roadmap. Meat plant to close after COVID-19 cases. Now, this lexicon, this neuro-linguistic programming that's taking place about cases rather than deaths, pervades the news at the moment, because what's happening is there are no longer any deaths, at least in Scotland, and there may be no deaths in England. It's hard to say because the NHS have stopped publishing daily death statistics. So all we have is a sort of rolling total, which doesn't tell us that nobody died yesterday. But I assure you, nobody's dying. So to protect their rationale for continuing to rule over us with an iron fist, they keep talking about cases. A number of this is rubbish journalism. I tell you, journalists, you're rubbish. You really are. Journalists are rubbish. Meat plant to close after COVID-19 cases. Temporarily close after a number of cases. How many? What is the number? The number of cases. How many is that? Good morning, gobsmacker. Greenland's ice loss is at record high. Greenland's ice sheet lost a record amount of mass last year. The rate of ice loss redefine their worst case scenario as they assess climate change. More on page 23, well, we'll come to that. A US-based commentator has been suspended after making a horrific homophobic remark on air. Well, I don't know what that was, so I can't repeat it. A whole page here about somebody who likes Taylor Swift. It's not even about Taylor Swift. It's about people who like Taylor Swift. This is a newspaper. I'm on page 3. We're already into celebrity. That's how much they want us to be informed about what's happening. And when I say us, I guess I mean, the wider public. I'm not actually relying on newspapers to inform me. I just buy them for the crossword. Ancient leaves offer climate change clues. Fossilized leaves from a 23 million year old forest suggest that some plants may adapt and grow more quickly as CO2 levels rise. Well, anyone who's got a garden in their cupboard or loft could have told you that. For all of you home gardeners out there, I can attest CO2 does indeed cause plants to grow more and quickly. Ex-Trump aide Bannon arrested for fraud. Now, this is an interesting story because I didn't know that the American people had to GoFundMe to build the wall. I didn't, but I like that. I think that's the kind of go-get-'em, independently minded, proactive stance that more people in the world need to take. I really do. Fuck the government. If you want something done, do it yourself. And get on with it as well, because time is short. So, prosecutors say Mr. Bannon received over $1 million to pay himself expenses. He has some co-defendees to pay Mr. Bannon's personal expenses nominally for the Build the Wall scheme. All four orchestrated a scheme to defraud hundreds of thousands of donors in connection with a crowdfunding campaign which raised $25 million to build a wall along the southern border of the United States. Well, used hundreds of thousands of dollars in a manner inconsistent with the organization's claimed objective, faked invoices, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Okay, We Build the Wall originally promoted a project for 3 miles of fence posts. 3 miles of fence posts for $25 million. Hey, I'll do that for you. I'll build it cheaper and higher. Honestly, I will. That's not very ambitious. We Build the Wall originally promoted this 3 miles of fence post in South that was built and largely funded by Fisher Industries, who received $2 billion in funding for wall contracts from the American government. And they are the people who built the wall that has eroded. Well, that doesn't say much for American craftsmanship, I'm afraid. I built a few fences in my time and they're all still standing. So, again, to the people of America, if you've got $25 million to spend, I'll have it and I'll build you a fence wall thing. Honestly, I will. And Steve Bannon, I've never really liked Steve Bannon. I think anyone who's that deep into government is probably a lying, murdering scumbag. And so adding thievery to that doesn't surprise me. Exams chaos, yawn. Exams chaos, yawn. Oh, Manchester bomber. DNA provided vital clues to bomb-making plot. Mr. Salmond returned to the UK on the 18th of May from Libya, where the government waved him off at the airport. Going to fight Gaddafi, have a nice time, kill some people for us, that's nice. While you're there, learn how to kill. Nice, goodbye, see you when you get back. David Cameron and Theresa May, blood on their hands. And the grief of the relatives and their anger should be directly directed at David Cameron and Theresa May. There's not much here. Again, very poor journalism. There's not much here about what they were doing in Libya and who for and who was okay with that. I think that's rubbish journalism. The backstory here is that these two people went to Libya to fight Gaddafi in a war we supported and armed. We armed crackpot Muslim jihadists. We probably parachuted guns and bombs into the desert. Arnold Lane, I don't reckon Trump's getting a second term, and I don't think he's getting laid either, if the two were connected. Swimming pools and gyms reopen at the end of the month. Travel agents. Here is more. Travel agents call for tests for all arrivals at airports. This is more of that proxy business does the work of fascist government for you. Travel agents demand that everyone must be tested. Now, I don't want your test, and not that I'm flying anywhere, but these demands from business will shortly become some kind of compulsion to have a test. And testing is one of the reasons cases are going up. Again, there's a combination of poor journalism and poor science in the narrative of the country at the moment. We're testing many, many more people. So of course we're finding more cases of COVID. And so that can be used in headlines and government pronouncements that, oh, well, you know, there's more cases now. Yeah, but is it more of a percentage? Are those cases, relatively speaking, represent more danger? I don't think so. Rules on face coverings for pupils may be changed. Now, at the moment in Scotland, the government is not planning to make school pupils wear face masks. However, that may change. Now, the science of this is of interest to me because, first of all, I don't see how children can't transmit it or don't. If you put 30 people in a room for 8 hours a day, I think there's a pretty good chance they're going to breathe in each other's respired aerosol particles. In fact, I'd put money on it. And therefore, if they're not wearing masks, there's going to be cross-infection. They're going to take it home and give it to their granny, if that's what we're worried about. And in fact, I believe, I may cross-check it later if anybody wants more clarity, I believe in every country where the schools have returned, cases have gone up because it's a prima facie fact that, I mean, the school I was at had 1,500 pupils. 1,500 pupils. If you put 1,500 pupils together all day, there's going to be some contamination and some infection. Jump in positive test results. Oh God, I hadn't even seen this. Jump in positive test results shows COVID-19 beginning to rise again. Positive test results as a result of mass testing. Because of course, if you mass test people, you will find more coronavirus. The testing turnaround times, contact tracing, just trying to get a handle on the amount. Significant cluster, Tayside outbreak concern. Growing number of new cases in Scotland. I haven't heard in this paper of a single death. Not one. Not one. I have not heard of a single death relating to COVID at all, anywhere. So, what the fuck are we all afraid of? And why are we letting the government do this shit to us? Spain, death rate 11 times higher than a month ago. Okay. Aragon and Catalonia have been reporting higher numbers of deaths than those made public by the Spanish Ministry of Health. Aragon says 15 people died over the previous 7 days. That's 2 a day. By last week, the figure had risen to 72. Well, Yabu sucks. Here's the news. Dyson wants you to buy a Hoover. That's a whole page. I wonder how much that costs. That's essentially what newspapers exist for, you know. That is what newspapers exist for. And so we don't really need the journalism to be that accurate or compelling. or relevant, because here's another full page ad for the Galaxy. This might as well be the news. The news is buy shit. Buy plastic shit made in the Far East by people who work for a handful of rice, so that you can keep the economy going. That is what the news is. Anybody familiar with the work of Noam Chomsky? Oh no, wait. I don't think it is. No, it's Marshall McLuhan, I believe, who said, the medium is the message. The medium is the message. And so the medium, the newspaper, distributing adverts, the message is buy things. Okay, the opinion matrix. Channel crossings. Boy's death is a symbol of failed policies. An asylum seeker drowned while crossing the channel. I would say the boy's death is a symbol of drowning. John Pilger. I like John Pilger. I've read some John Pilger. The boy's death is a symbol of how trying to cross the channel in a rubber dinghy using a spade as an oar is a bad idea. I would say that's what that's symbolic of. Brexit wrangling. Can Britain find a way out of the EU? I thought we'd already left. This is a story about the negotiations, which are still stalled. And I think I've spoken before about the fishing rights to British waters, and also control over the City of London and its finances, or regulation or taxing thereof. The stakes are high for the 2020 election. Well, a couple of competing opinions here. The Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, who doesn't like Donald Trump. So it should be a much bigger story that the president has enthusiastically endorsed the congressional run of a virulently Islamophobic, far-right conspiracy theorist, Laura Loomer. I don't know the lady. It illuminates the stakes of the 2020 presidential race. I think Muslims are twats, and I'm Islamophobic. I'm religious phobic. I think if you have a divine religion, you're a retarded idiot moron fuck, and you're potentially dangerously insane. So I may, along with Laura Loomer, come in for some criticism for the Washington Post, it would appear. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, we're back in the space launch and recovery game. NASA's mission to explore deep space has been revived. We're going to space and we're going to stay, says Robert O'Brien. I like the Space Force. I do. I like it. It plays into my joyful sense of childish adventure. I like the Space Force. Space Marines, Buzz Lightyear, all that. I think space is where we're going to fight. Briefly, I think any conflagration or conflict that takes place on Earth between the superpowers in the near future will start with the destruction of satellites. And we will see a firework display of awesome proportions as a cascade of destruction sweeps across Earth's near orbit, leading to it raining heavy metal down upon us. Learn the lessons of Kiev and stay out of Minsk. Yeah, Lukashenko is re-entrenching. Lukashenko is the man who rigged the election in Belarus. Yes, I did notice he'd created a space force. I don't know, I was just talking about that, and I like it. Imagine growing up as a young boy in America and having not just the ambition or the dream of joining a space force, but one actually existing that you could join. Although I venture that no humans will conduct any warfare in space personally, because it's drone central up there. It's a place for automata, and it'll be like Space Invaders. It's like Star Wars. It's like the PlayStation 5, man. Space Force will be a console-based war. So Lukashenko in Belarus is doubling down and trying to stay in power. I don't think that's realistic. I think his population wants rid of him. They would like a new lying, murdering scumbag to rule their country and tax them. Greenland ice loss at record high. The annual ice loss in Greenland is 15% worse than it ever was in its worst year. Greenland ice sheet loss is one of the largest contributors to sea level rise. That's it. It's just telling us some figures. It's not. There's no opinion there. That's the sort of thing that should worry people. It really is. It should really be on the front page. That's the kind of the weather, if you like, and in a broader sense, the climate should be, I believe, of more interest. Trump is a risk to democracy, warns Obama. President attacks Goodyear over hat ban. Facebook takes action over conspiracy group QAnon. Facebook is to restrict the right-wing conspiracy movement QAnon and no longer recommend users join their groups. It's not an outright ban. They can still post material supporting these groups as long as they don't violate policies. QAnon has flourished on Facebook in recent months and has aided the rise of fringe movements. Twitter announced a similar crackdown. TikTok has banned QAnon altogether. Google says it removes tens of thousands of QAnon-related videos from its YouTube service and banned hundreds of channels for violating its policy, but it does not ban QAnon outright. Well, and if anybody didn't know, QAnon conspiracy theory is centered on the belief that there is a war being waged against a secret government that engages in child sex trafficking, and they are all satanic pedophiles and cannibals. Really, people, really, honestly, QAnon are a bunch of loons and crackpots. Sure, Bill Clinton got laid. I'm sure he did. In fact, it's a matter of record that he was shagging Monica Lewinsky and whoever else he could shag. There's no such person as Satan. And if you're worried about what's happening to children, I suggest you cast your eye on the wider horizon to the millions dying of diarrhea, starvation, and the effects of global consumerism, rather than the idea that a hapless few individuals were raped, murdered, and eaten on a silver platter in some sort of demonic basement of the White House. Honestly, I'm not saying it's about numbers, but it's about numbers. 1 million dead people is far worse than a dead person. Fuck you and your individual tragedy. There's a whole-scale slaughter happening. Yeah, I'll tell you this, 750,000 children are sold into sex slavery every year. They're not missing. They're down the docks giving blowjobs to truck drivers for 50 cents. There is no secret about the exploitation and the abuse or murder of children on planet Earth. It's not a conspiracy. It's a wholesale industry supported by your dad, your uncle, and your, people. Real people, not monsters. One of the problems, I tell you, if you're a social worker, one of the things in your training that they'll tell you is, now, when you start to encounter sexual abuse, you will find that it's not some strange, creepy paedophile in the park with a beard like Rolf Harris, wearing a lot of jewellery like Jingle Jangle Man. No, most 99% of sexual abuse in Britain, at least the figures I'm aware of, happens in the home by family members or people as members of your extended family. That's who's doing all the child sex abuse in the world, people. Families to their own children. And if you want to put a stop to child sexual abuse, I suggest you support sex education in school and fund a useful and meaningful emergency service for children where they can dial 999 and say articulately, because they've been educated, so-and-so is touching my genitals or putting things up my bottom. Honestly, the idea that the children of planet Earth only need to fear satanic cannibals in the White House is pish. It's utter pish. Children all over this planet are being raped, murdered, slaved, and exploited on a wholesale fucking basis, from the Bangladeshi sweat boxes where your t-shirts made to the factories of China that knock out your electronics. QAnon are tossers. Really. Putin's opponent Navalny in coma after poisoning. You'd have to be a brave man, wouldn't you, to publicly stand up to Putin and then eat something anywhere. I wonder where they got to him. I mean, the ease with which you could be poisoned is fascinating. So, as a tool of oppression or suppression of political dissent, I think it's a cracker. There's very little defense you could have against it. Greta Thunberg meets Merkel in Berlin. Oh, that'd be an interesting meeting. They look like they're related, don't they? I can just see Angela Merkel's fat moon face next to Greta Thunberg's chubby moon face, talking about the need for more solar power. Honestly. Ballistic missile isn't inaugurated. Iran has ignored US demands to halt its missile program and inaugurated a surface-to-surface ballistic missile with a range of 870 miles. Just a cruise missile, not. Filler up. The risky rise of cosmetic tweakments. This is a story about the decline in popularity of actual plastic surgery where people cut you up. Yes, Esther Ranson's Childline. Yes, I had something else in mind, something more useful and pragmatic. Honestly, if you want to protect children, support the education of children at an early age so that they can articulate what is happening to them to adults who could help wherever they might be. Honestly, the idea that Satanists are the biggest threat to children on this planet is total pish. It really is. They're down the docks sucking your uncle's cock for 50p in Saigon. Yes. So, I mean, I know people. I really do. I know people who've had injections and other tweakments. Really. And I consider plastic surgery. I had plastic surgery this morning. I went under the knife. I cut my hair off. Now that's the kind of plastic surgery I support and advocate. Anything you do to cut yourself out of vanity, I have no sympathy for you. Really, I don't. Well, that would appear to be it. I have reached the puzzles and the games. This paper does have a business section, which is sometimes quite interesting, because a bit like the climate. Here's a bit like the climate. I feel that business news is really where it's at. You know, all this stuff, like the politics and that's just a distraction. Meanwhile, in the background, you know, Rio Tinto have purchased Uruguay, and that's what's really happening. So I might just do some business. Fortnite iPhones. Oh, Fortnite installed. I see. Because Fortnite, a popular video game, Your Honour, Fortnite has been banned from the App Store because it no longer wants to fork over the 30% extortion tax fee for being on it. And so iPhones that have already got Fortnite installed are becoming rare and therefore worth more. So if you've got one of them, man, I wish I'd installed that on my second iPhone. American giant McKinsey, a PR firm, was paid more than £500,000 for a consulting contract to advise the government on the vision for new track and trace in Britain. That's just the vision. That's like, what does that even mean? They were paid £500,000 to have a vision. I'm having a vision. Ooh, man, I could have visions all day long. Hey Arnold, I bet you've had a few visions. I know I have. Where's the government when you're having a vision with their checkbook? Half of employees lie in the workplace. Half of employees have lied at work, often because their boss or colleagues do not like to hear diverse opinions. Interesting. Cultural fascism, eh? Really? A survey of 1,000 workers by the job site Glassdoor indicated people also lied to avoid getting into trouble or to hide mistakes. It was like that when I got here. And there you go. That was the business. Well, that's what the papers say today. A load of pish and bollocks. I'm off to walk the dog. Oh well, when the rain stops. I hope you're going to have a great day, 'cause I am. See you next time.